Hi everyone, this is Kathleen Melago, author of In Tune with Students. Thank you for joining me. This is video number 2 of 7, and it's just designed to either help you get ready for back to school or to have a nice refresher whenever it is that you come across these videos. This video is going to focus on what students should know about you. And we're going to start off with how you introduce yourself, because in private lessons, I think this is actually pretty easy to forget to do. So obviously your name, it's good to share that with the students. I think sometimes I've actually forgotten to do that. I knew that they either signed up for applied lessons with me in college, or they knew that, with their parents, they had arranged to have a lesson with me. So like, surprise, I'm the one who's here, right? There's only two of us, me and you, and we both know who each other is kind of at some level. But you still want to take that time to address what you want the students to call you. And we're going to talk about you and the student's name in upcoming video. But for today, we're just talking about introducing ourselves. So what do you want the students to call you? And that might differ depending on the age of the students. So for example, when I've taught students who were much older than me, I felt weird having them call me with a title. So we just went on the first name basis. But in school, I like to use a title. This is up to you, and maybe your institution might have a say in it as well, depending on where you're teaching. But really, your name is part of your identity. So you want to think about what you want the students to call you. I will say that it's wise to be a little careful with nicknames, especially as a young teacher, like, I'm going to go by Miss C or something like that, because that can sometimes blur the lines as to whether you're really a professional or not. Now, again, your identity is your identity. And if you want to go by a nickname, by all means, if that's okay with your institution, by all means do it. But do think about what that can possibly do with the boundaries, with the professionalism between you and your students. And it might be just fine, and sometimes it can cause a little bit of trouble, just depending on the situation. When I was learning to become a teacher in the early to mid 1990s, I almost said 1900s. Yikes, it wasn't the 1900s, but it was the late 1900s. At any rate, when I was learning to be a teacher back then, we were taught to really have a wall between us and the students. It was like they never really knew anything about you. And that was kind of it. And there wasn't social media at the time, so it was kind of easy to do that. People didn't really have an online presence or anything like that. But we know that's changed over time. And maybe it wasn't even ideal back in the 1990s when we were taught that way. But now students do want to know about their teachers, and it does help to build relationships. So one thing that I like to do is at the beginning of every term, so like for me, I teach college, so I do this in the fall and then again in the spring semester. And then if I teach summer classes, I do it again in the summer. But I make just a short video. I like it to be no more than about 2 minutes in length. And I just, whatever's going on in my life right now. So I usually show some pictures like of me and my younger brothers, because I have 4 younger brothers, which is interesting to students sometimes. I like to show me on a roller coaster, or a picture of a roller coaster that I've ridden recently, because I enjoy roller coasters. And I might share some things like my husband and I go to the pit football and basketball games. So usually some things like that. Just some basic hobbies. Maybe if I made bread recently, I might show a loaf of it or something like that. But what that does is it makes a connection for the students. So inevitably, from seeing that video, I will get emails from students like, oh, I also have 4 brothers, or I'm also from a big family. I also really like roller coasters. What's your favorite bread recipe? All of those kinds of things happen, and that helps us relate on a more personal level. But it's still professional. We're not crossing boundaries in what we're sharing. When you're making these videos, be really mindful of what's visible. So I try to be careful about trying to showcase any sort of wealth. If you are wealthy, maybe don't show big fancy cars or things that might make the difference between you and your students seem like vast, like this teacher is never going to understand me because I don't have money, or things like that. They're never going to be able to relate. And also, you don't have to be as boring as my background here, but be careful about what's in the background. So, make sure that it's not like a bar, or like, your underwear is hanging there, or it's just messy or something like that. Be really mindful of that so that it's professional. Relationships are foundational in the private lesson setting, and students oftentimes will study with the same teacher for many years. I know I studied with all of my flute teachers for, a number of years, at least 2 years, sometimes more, depending on which degree it was for. And they all were very funny. They were all very smart, wonderful teachers. They were all also incredibly professional. And so I have great respect for them because of that. I learned a lot because of that. And the lines were never blurred as to like, are you my friend or are you my teacher? And that helped me as a student growing up be able to appreciate my teachers and learn a lot from them. So as you turn off this video, some things I hope you'll do. I hope you'll think about making a really short video to introduce yourself to your students. And if you don't really feel like making a video, maybe just 2 or 3 bullet points of things that you hope to share with your students about you that you think would be interesting. So thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in video number 3 coming up soon.